Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read you an article from a Nebraska publication. Ben Sasse responds to resolution in Nebraska. GOP to censure him. This is awesome. And this happened in Wyoming to Liz Cheney. This is all because President Trump controls the GOP. The Republican Party is Trump's political party. That's a good thing. You want an end to never-ending and perpetual regime changes, counterinsurgency conflicts, interventions that ruin the lives of people around the world. Inadvertently, when they say that President Obama's well-meaning mistake when it comes to Libya, they're absolving him. They're trying to remove any guilt or responsibility for the failed NATO intervention that turned a country into a failed state. But I want to read you this. So, Ben Sasse, the Lincoln Project, Mittens Romney, Pelosi, Schumer, they're two sides of the exact same coin. When I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post, I wrote articles in The Hill, the Huffington Post, and the Salon that went viral, stating that Bernie Sanders was infinitely better than Hillary Clinton. Now I know that Bernie Sanders is essentially a more left-leaning Hillary Clinton. He's voting alongside he voted alongside the Lincoln Project people within the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders, AOC, exists to funnel left-leaning angst and frustration, the ideals and the hopes and the dreams of really, idealistic. There's a lot of good people who are idealistic, who want certain policies. And the far left says, one day we'll get them. One day when the Messiah comes, just keep voting Democrat. And they funnel all the left-leaning votes back into the Democratic Party, and The Nation, Mother Jones, and all the formerly left-leaning publications that used to stand up to both parties, just back the same political party that has the Lincoln Project people, which President Trump also defeated. So not only is he cleaning house with never-Trumpers within the Republican Party, getting their states to condemn them and rebuke them within resolutions, but he's also just allowing the Lincoln Project skeletons to come out of the closet. He won that battle. Now you have a co-founder resigning. You have one of the Lincoln Project people with, things that I can't even talk about because of YouTube policies. His skeletons are out in the closet. These are the most despicable political operatives. The most nefarious, nasty, slithering, slimy political operatives that move. They were in the Trump, the Bush era GOP. They pushed and advocated for all the Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld era foreign policy catastrophes, and then they slithered their way into the Democratic Party because Democrats think that all Republicans are the same, and their whole thing is every argument Democrats have is an appeal to authority, almost every argument. So they say, well, look at these Republicans. They don't like Trump. It's like, well, they're called never-Trumpers. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We're back on our way to 200,000 subs. I'm going to be unveiling something really amazing very soon. You will absolutely love it. You will absolutely love it. And I can't wait to tell you, but it's in the works. Hit subscribe if you want to support my voice long-term. To my new Patreons, thank you. Your support is greatly appreciated, especially in this time period. If you want to support my voice long-term, my Patreon is below. Ladies and gentlemen, let me read you this. Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse is responding to critics within the Nebraska GOP who are making plans to vote to censor him at the Nebraska Republican Party State Central Committee meeting in Columbus on February 13th. Sasse has been one of a handful of Republican lawmakers willing to criticize former President Donald Trump and especially Trump's role in the January 6th. A resolution of censure against Sasse has been drafted by the head of the Republican Party. The resolution obtained by the news channel Nebraska is focused on Sasse's criticism of Donald Trump. Notice that Ben Sasse and Mittens Romney and Liz Cheney, although they voted for impeachment, although they sided with the impeachment of President Trump, the second impeachment. Notice that it doesn't matter how many impeachments, President Trump still gains influence within the GOP. Why? because he was the first president to step foot in North Korea. He presided over the Abraham Accords. He was able to accomplish amazing foreign policy achievements that nobody can take away from him. And if you are the type of petulant, malicious person to say, well, those are just public relations stunts, then go and look and name me one thing President Obama or Bush achieved in terms of a lasting positive foreign policy legacy. One thing. I can list numerous things. Serbia and Kosovo with economic deals that Trump presided over. His administration, it's really hilarious because they're like, oh, well, he's not going to get security. He's not going to get security briefings and intel briefings. So what? He was able to achieve paradigm-changing accomplishments. And the intel community was after him, trying to set him up and frame him. He didn't work with Russia. That is a tinfoil hat fantasy. He didn't work with Russia. He didn't have to in 2016. Okay? They cheated Bernie Sanders. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign. Bernie still to this day, has not acknowledged that he was railroaded by the same Democratic Party that he works so hard to prop up. Again, he's voting alongside the Lincoln Project people. Think about the left in the country before we get to Ben Sasse and Liz Cheney and the fact that Trump is winning that battle also. Okay? There are missteps that I've talked about. President Trump has to learn from his mistakes, but he's done enough in terms of accomplishments to completely, pretty much control the Republican Party now. McConnell, technically, in terms of legislation, has the most political power right at this moment. He doesn't control the Republican Party. Once 2022 hits, you're going to see Trump Republicans winning every primary challenge against any and every Trumper. Then you will have a House that impeaches Biden immediately, because there's enough there in Caligula, Biden's son's emails, to impeach the president on issues that are not trumped up or, no pun intended, made up and fabricated. There's no Steele dossier. There's no ellipsis they're going to focus on. President Trump is protected under the First Amendment. They're not going after him in a court of law. Ben Sasse, Liz Cheney, Pelosi, Schumer, the mayor of D.C., the attorney general of D.C., they're not going after President Trump in a court of law. Why? Why don't they level criminal charges against Trump? Because they can't. They're trying to milk and extract and squeeze every ounce of political utility from this. It won't work. It won't work. Okay? President Trump is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. Okay? Biden needs every possible conceivable. Democrats need every conceivable advantage known to mankind. Late night, Hollywood, intel operatives, you name it. They need the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, and they still can't wrestle away President Trump from the Republican Party because President Trump has actually presided over paradigm-changing accomplishments. And he allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Okay, he's a really bad supremacist. Or he's a really bad bigoted person, or he's bad at being racist. If he signs prison reform legislation, and there was record low black and Latino unemployment during his tenure as president, we had record lows in unemployment throughout most of President Trump's tenure. Pandemic was not his fault. When they say, oh, he knew, the intelligence community told him. Why didn't the intelligence community tell anybody else? This is propaganda. Okay, Bob Woodward. He told Bob Woodward. Oh, why didn't Bob Woodward tell everybody? What he told Bob Woodward was public record knowledge. There were already articles talking about, well, it could be this amount of people, a million, The worst outcomes, according to the New York Times, are in Democratic-run states. This is a fact. The top 7 of the top 10 highest in terms of aggregate lives lost, and 8 of the top 12 in terms of per capita rates, with, unfortunately, New York and New Jersey leading in per capita rates, aggregate lives lost, and unemployment rate. And God bless the people of New York and New Jersey. How you can elect Cuomo and Phil Murphy, I don't know. God bless the people of New York and New Jersey. They deserve better. They deserve better than Murphy and Cuomo. But again, the Democrats, when they preside over the worst outcomes, they don't say, they don't accept, well, you see, your advocacy was obviously wrong. You were wrong on these issues. But for example, if a Republican were to pass away from the pandemic, you see, he didn't listen to us. You see, and he lost his life. Oh, you see, and they've done this before to people. It's despicable. It's despicable. Same thing happens. There's a tragedy. You see, we need legislation controlling the Second Amendment. You know what's been happening now? My God, in cities with the most, let's say, I'm always algorithmically friendly, so soon I'll be able to venture out. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody, and I'll be able to speak my mind. But I mean, obviously, it's in addition to this channel and H.A. Goodman's other channel, but it's going to be fantastic. And it'll be amazing. But there have been cities with the most control of the Second Amendment, legislation that controls the Second Amendment more so than any other cities or states, with the highest spike in violence associated with criminals who utilize firearms. Okay, am I long-winded enough with that? And nobody says, you see, Second Amendment rights groups are correct. And see, again, Republicans in general, or at least people who enjoy freedoms in this country, don't relish in the suffering of their political adversaries. It's Democrats who lack cohesive and logical arguments. So they have nothing but emotion and hyperbole and malice. And so they can look and you see, you didn't do this, and that's why you suffered. It's like, no, people are doing exactly what you're saying, and they're still suffering. So, but it'd be worse. Well, then why are the Republican states doing better on a whole lot of issues? Anyway, Ben Sasse. So, Ben Sasse is getting censured. In a video statement below, Sasse again decried Trump's role, compelling he put the Constitution ahead of party. Personality cults aren't conservative. Okay. So Ben Sasse, like others, said, oh, it's a cult, a weird worship of one dude. Look, Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney don't understand, or maybe they do understand, but the Democratic or liberal Democrat or media spin that Trump is this cult of personality, nobody votes for Trump because they worship him. That does not happen. 74 million Americans didn't vote for President Trump because they worship him. 74 million Americans see a man who doesn't care about politics as usual. That's why he was able to renegotiate NAFTA and create the USMCA. That's why he was able to accomplish so many great things in terms of foreign policy. That's why he was able to go up against corrupt intelligence officials, the Lincoln Project, corrupt people within his own political party, and corrupt people within the Democratic Party. He has made missteps. He should never have insulted LeBron James. He should never have insulted NFL athletes. He should never have utilized Twitter in the manner that he did. He should have created a national, or tried his best to create a national discourse, debate, philosophical debates, discussion, a back and forth in terms of an exchange of ideas. Okay? That didn't happen. That needs to President Trump needs to foster that. Okay? Hopefully he runs again in 2024, or somebody very similar to him runs again that opposes the Lincoln Project people. But people vote for President Trump because he breaks the mold. They don't want politics as usual. This is the thing with President Trump. Okay, Biden as president is not vindication of politics as usual. It's not vindication. President Trump fell for certain traps. Okay? I talked about this. There were social media traps. They poked and prodded at him, and he didn't want to deal with media. He didn't want to deal with criticism, or he didn't want to accept criticism, or he didn't want to create a national dialogue. And that needed to happen. We needed to have discourse and an exchange of ideas. He could have won over a person like Liz Cheney. Maybe not Ben Sasse or Mitt Romney, but he could have won over a person like Liz Cheney. You say, well, who cares? They censored her anyway. That's fine, but There's something, you still have to play the game of politics, ladies and gentlemen. You still have, that's why, like, I'll go to the mat, or I'll go to bat, or I'll defend Matt Gaetz, or I'll defend Devin Nunes, I'll defend Jim Jordan, I'll defend, a person like Ron DeSantis, Ron Johnson, Rand Paul, okay, Tulsi Gabbard, on the left, or Democrat. There are people who I will say, okay, these are people important to independent voters, important to Trump supporters, important to the future of the country, important to the movement that Trump created. I'm not talking about Tulsi Gabbard is still on the left, obviously, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, thank God she apologized, disavowed everything. She needed to. But that needed to happen before all of this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank God she disavowed everything. But before she disavowed everything, she was a gigantic, enormous political liability. It was a disaster and catastrophe. She was saying things that you cannot, they're loony and zany. You can't have any more social media, you can't have any more message board pitfalls. No more Q nonsense crap. No more. That is done. That was almost certainly a political ploy started almost certainly. I mean, it had to have been started by somebody in the Democratic Party. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying it was so detrimental to Trump. The only possibility is that somebody who wanted to hurt Trump's movement said, oh, yeah, trust Sessions and Patriots and this and God. And so it was horrendous in every single way, shape, and form. Okay? Then, I don't want to get into it. I heard somebody say, you don't understand, there was disinformation, but we had to sift through the disinformation. What are you talking about? It was a message board. The whole thing was nonsense. And I said that 2 years back. I said that. I told everybody. In my debate with Jordan Sather. Read that. Watch that on hagoodman.com. Okay? I debate people I don't like. Democrats don't. What they do is, or I debate people I disagree with, or people I don't like, or people who are doing something dangerous. I use reason and logic. You could see my debates on hagoodman.com. But what Democrats do is they say, oh my goodness, AOC, Bernie Sanders, the entire Democratic Party is facing huge problems on the left. The left is tired of them now because they're finally realizing and waking up. The far left that talks about Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and working class and socialism, and universal basic income, and people are suffering. Okay, these are all idealistic. There are good people who are saying these things. Very good people. Okay, they're realizing now the thing is a gigantic racket. And people like Bernie Sanders and AOC and people who just, we can't have Medicare for all now, Jimmy Dore is a hero for what he's doing. He put a spotlight and a mirror in front of the Democratic Party. Okay? We know, I've been saying this for years. For years I've been saying this. But he's a hero. The others who support Jimmy Dore on the left are heroes. Why? Because they're finally realizing the Democratic Party is not the Green Party. If you want these policies, join the Green Party, build it up, or the People's Party, or join it, start your own political party. I was told that when I was on the left, when my articles were going viral. One of my articles in the Huffington Post saying how Bernie Sanders was so great and much better than Clinton had 750,000 shares on Facebook, something like that, or 750,000, 800,000 Facebook likes, something like that. Okay? And I would routinely, every article would go viral in 2016. When I heard a rebuttal from one person, why don't you just start your own political party? I was like, what? This is what the Democratic Party stands for. No, it doesn't. It doesn't stand for that. These are the policies the left wants are Green Party policies. The policies Republican wanted are Trump Republican policies. He's the only person to actually bring populism into the Republican Party. Trump was not a bigot. He was not a racist. He never said 1930s and 1940s Germans were fine people. In the C-SPAN quote with him actually speaking, he says, and I'm not referring to them. I condemn them. They should be condemned. It was never good enough. But again, President Trump should have, as many times as they asked, should have, like in the Democratic Party public relations style, like when Biden says, oh gosh, I just didn't do anything. Tara Reid accuses him, and Biden writes the crime bill, and Biden says that horrible thing that he said that everyone swept under the rug with Charlemagne the God. Okay, that any other Republican or Trump, oh my God, they'd be a supremacist right then and there, but Biden said it, and so even Charlemagne the God didn't take him to task, and nobody took him to task because he's a Democrat. But Trump should have played the game of politics because they were able to manipulate his bravado, his brash and kind of sledgehammer bulldozer mentality. They were able to manipulate that image into he's a despot. He's a orange Cheeto Mussolini. And even though it wasn't true, they were able to get that. He got a greater percentage of non-white voters than any president in the past 60 years, any Republican in the past 60 years, according to Newsweek. But there were missteps. He didn't have to, the last couple of years on Twitter, even though you had corrupt intelligence officials and you had a hoax called Trump Russia and you had everyone twisting his words and you had a press corps that you think the press corps gave him questions in advance, it was performance art. You had people who literally made a name for themselves. That's all they did. Okay? I was accused by one person of taking advantage of people's anger. No, I didn't make a name for myself from anger. Okay, I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post, and I became a supporter of President Trump because I want to end counterinsurgency conflicts and bring Americans home to their families. Much more important than climate change. Still very important, much more important. Why? Because if you put militaries in one small geographic location, which is a hotbed and a powder keg, you could end the world that way. And a lot of other reasons. It is immoral. It is the most immoral thing to allow Americans just to fight forever in never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and focus on social media nonsense. But anyway, the anger was they provoked Trump. Trump gave them what they wanted, and that was his undoing towards the end. Okay, still the fact that he doesn't have Twitter now, his power and influence grows. Thank God Twitter banned President Trump. It was the worst thing to do in terms of the First Amendment, in terms of Twitter itself. It's tanking now. Even there's articles saying it's going to do really well this year in terms of ad spending. Their ads the market share is a paltry 1%. Something like they have a really low market share in terms of online spending, despite how big it is as a company. And it has $3.4 billion in debt, and the debt keeps growing. But their users don't grow as fast as their debt is growing, so that company's going to tank eventually. Forbes had an article saying it's the worst company of all time. And then, of course, Forbes took it down. That's the way media is. But anyway, Ben Sasse now censured. Liz Cheney, Mittens Romney makes people yawn and just they laugh at him. You know, he put a dog on top of his car. These people, if they ever run for president, they'll get the Jeb Bush treatment. Jeb Bush was annihilated by Trump within a matter of days. At least, like I said, there were missteps. What President Trump was able to accomplish was profound. And the best thing to happen is that he's not on Twitter. We're looking now and we're seeing a train wreck of a presidency in many ways. Okay, many ways. And President Trump's accomplishments need to be championed. And they're plentiful. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. There's a reason that Ben Sasse and Liz Cheney are getting rebuked, facing a rebuke from their Republican parties within their respective states. There's a reason why. In one poll, 2/3 of Republicans would go with President Trump to a new political party. Why is that? Because he runs the political party. It's just the final stage of him taking full control will be 2022. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now to this channel. I'll be back, of course, numerous times today.